Hey everybody, and welcome to Zelda Month. That's right, this whole month I'm going to be doing a bunch of videos about Zelda stuff. And I'm going to be upfront about this and tell you that I did just take this idea. I basically stole this idea from a famous YouTuber, someone you might actually have heard of, Peanut Butter Gamer. And I'll probably link his channel in the description just so it doesn't seem like I'm as much of an asshole for stealing it, even though I totally am. But I figure, hey, if he's gonna do it a monthly thing and make it a Zelda month thing, why can't I be part of that? Why can't I hopefully catch some trickle down from that excitement? And hell, I love the Legend of Zelda series a lot, so I figure it's fair game, because it's either that or I was just going to spread this stuff out over a course of time, and I mean, why don't we just get it all out of the way? So this month you can expect videos. There's a lot of them I have, a lot of reviews and some other videos thrown in there, so it's going to be, I'm going to try for maybe every other day at least of videos, maybe more, maybe less, depending on what gets done and what fits where. But that's the plan for this month, so, just stick around, tell your friends that this stuff's happening. And let's celebrate Zelda together. And I figure the best way to start, of course, is with a Real Person Reviews episode. I'm Sam, and I'm a real person. And I figure the best place to start is with the original Legend of Zelda for that NES. So, the first Legend of Zelda is basically just an overhead action adventure game. It's actually pretty simple in what it was trying to do, and being an NES game and all. The main plot is that, according to the introduction thing, which I'm sure you'll be seeing on the screen as I'm talking anyway, is that Ganon stole the Triforce of Power. I guess they call him the Prince of Darkness in this. And Zelda split the Triforce of Wisdom and I guess hid the pieces, and then before she was kidnapped by Ganon's minions, and then you're supposed to get those pieces back and save Zelda, and thereby save Hyrule. So, that's kind of the plot, I guess. There's not a lot there, and really you could skip that. There might be more in the manual, but I don't have that, so, And what it basically consists of is you run around this overworld map and go and try to find things. You try to find these dungeons where the pieces of the Triforce are hidden, which they'll be guarded by a lot of Ganon's minions, and some bosses are going to be guarding them as well. And you can find all different kinds of items in these dungeons that will help you tackle different enemies and different obstacles, help you get to new places, and there's also a lot of secrets for you to find. There's ways for you to get, some extra cash from secrets, or find some helpful hints, or, get some extra life. You can get heart containers so you can take more hits, because it extends how many hearts you have. And basically you start out the game with, there's a cave, and you can get a sword there, and that's basically what you'll be using for most of the game, is a sword and shield. And all the stuff you can get, most of it can be upgraded in some kind of way also. And, you'll be collecting money from fallen foes to go buy stuff in different shops. And it doesn't sound like a whole lot. I mean, it's just going around, exploring an overworld, and going into dungeons and trying to defeat the challenges that are in there. And some very light puzzles going on as well. So it's really a test of your skill, and it's really about exploration, and I think that's the main thing to take away from this, is that Zelda games are about exploration. This is an adventure. And, the thing that makes it cool is that it's very clearly inspired by RPGs. There's a lot of RPG kind of stuff in there with the fantasy setting, and the idea of going around and, getting new items to give you new abilities. But it takes away a lot of the fluff of RPGs, where you don't have to just do turn-based combat, or you don't have to deal with level grinding. It's about skill. You have to be able to know how to tackle enemies. What weapons to use, what works well for you, and how you're supposed to approach them. And there's more than one way to skin a cat, so you can take these guys on in a bunch of different ways. You can also explore the overworld in a bunch of different ways too. You can find some secrets before others. You can totally miss a lot of them. You can even do some levels totally out of order, even though they are numbered. So it's you have a lot of freedom, and it's pretty cool that it's a nice kind of open idea where it's not so structured. It gives you this ability to explore and adventure. And it's so cool because like it's just the world is open to you right when you start. And it's like, go and figure it out. Which is something I think later Zelda games, of course, there has been some issues with. A lot of later Zelda games will say, like, go here, like, do this, and they'll try to kind of guide you in the right direction. But the first Legend of Zelda was great in that it didn't really tell you anything. It told you, like, a basic plot if you chose to read that opening, scroll or look in the manual. But it didn't really tell you, what you were supposed to, like, it doesn't say, like, go find the, like, a thing in the forest and now go to, like, the mountain. It's just, like, you start off and you go. And if you get stuck, you just got to figure it out, If you find, like, you find a level, I found this level, and if you, you can choose to do it and try it if you want to. Like, this is level 3. I haven't found level 1 yet. But I already found this, so, like, maybe you want to try it. Like, they'll let you try it if you have the proper equipment to go in there, If you, you might get stuck, but you can go ahead and try it out because, why not? Which is something that not a lot of games do. You usually don't get to just go into levels, like, just because you found them. Even, like, with hints, like, this game has a lot of kind of cryptic stuff, but there are hints everywhere. Like, you can go and find these people that you can pay them, so it costs rupees, and you'll get hints. And, these hints are going to help you, like, with parts you might be stuck on in the game. So, like, even back when it came out, you wouldn't have to, like, get Nintendo Power or, look it up. You wouldn't have to, like, in some kind of magazine or ask people all around. You could just find it out in the game. It was in there. And it was great because it forced you to explore to find those people that were going to give you those hints. It made you explore really hard and really try to find things. And it's just great how to do anything in that game, it is just about exploring. Like, you need an item, go find it. You need to go to a dungeon, go find it. You need hints, go find it. It's awesome. Even the main map, when you start out, there's like a big, like, rectangle that's supposed to be the map on the top of the screen, but it's not detailed because it's just a big gray rectangle and it shows your blip where you are. It's awesome because it kind of makes you feel like, okay, like, I'm starting to learn, like, this area of that, in this quadrant or this, like, area of that big mass is, like, this stuff. And it wasn't just like a clear map that said what was over there. It was like you just kind of remember and, like, explore there and go around a bunch. And it's just really cool how it's just about exploration so much that it's such a rewarding experience when you do explore and do the things. And I think this is what really makes a Zelda game a Zelda game. At its core, Zelda games are adventure games. And it's cool, like, managing the rupees in this game was great compared to some other Zelda games, where your max rupees are 255. And the most expensive item in the game that you can purchase costs 250. But there are a lot of items that are going to cost you, like 60 or 80 or 100 or something like that. They cost you a good chunk of rupees. Plus, you have ammunition for your bow, because you can get a bow. The arrows you shoot, every arrow costs like a rupee. So, while it is really powerful and really useful, instead of, like, picking up ammunition and stuff for that separately or trying to buy an allotment of arrows, you're just, like, spending money on the fly. So you have to kind of be like, okay, is it worth trying to kill an enemy more easily with this and blowing my money on it? Or should I try and fight it, with some other method and, save up that cash for something I might need later, or if you're grinding up and trying to get something, which I guess there's a little bit of that too. Like, you can try to get an item, like, okay, well, I don't want to be spending up all my rupees while I'm trying to get more rupees. But, like, it's a good thing because it's a balance between, like, these rupees mean something. Like, you want to pick them up, you want to collect them because, you can easily, like, lose a piece of equipment or, like, require something later on that you find that's going to cost you a lot of rupees, and if you just had, 1,000 rupees, it wouldn't matter as much. Or if things were super cheap, or you could just, like, find, those items laying around wherever, why would you bother to go buy them? Another thing that a lot of later Zelda games kind of did where they just would give you all the items, so you would never have to buy that from the shops. So it's like, why bother? Rupees didn't mean anything. I think it's really cool how they really do mean something here, because they're a limited supply and things actually cost a decent amount of rupees that you'll need to probably get. Oftentimes more convenient than trying to go and just find it in the wild just from randomly fighting enemies. It's also super cool how you can tackle enemies in different ways, and how enemies don't necessarily have a tell. Like in later Zelda games, again, like I know I'm bringing those up a lot, and I shouldn't because this is the first one, but it's just for a comparison's sake. A lot of enemies and stuff in like later Zelda games have a very obvious tell. Like they do like a certain thing, and then you can see when they're vulnerable, like, oh, they're supposed to be like this is the point where you're supposed to hit them now because they're not doing anything, you know, it looks like they're tired or like they're exposing something. And usually they'll have a very clear like weak spot and a very clear weakness. You're like, oh, this guy is like a Cyclops, and he's looking at me at this point. Maybe I should like shoot him in the eye, you know, or I don't know. Like there's just some things where like it's kind of like obvious stuff with them, and in here it's really not. A lot of enemies can be killed multiple ways. Like there's enemies you can kill like with your sword. Most enemies can be killed with your sword, but then there's like some enemies, you know, you can easily kill with arrows. Some of them you can kill easily with bombs, and there's just like there's different ways to tackle these enemies, and you know, different ones are you know, maybe easier or harder than others, and you have to kind of prioritize like how you're going to tackle enemies and what order to tackle them in. And just the fact that all these dungeons are like little challenge rooms, like they just put in different like pieces and like different like you know, different setups of enemies. Basically is like you go into a room and there's going to be maybe some obstacles in them, and then there's going to be you know, like a different setup of enemies in there, an arrangement, and it's supposed to just be challenging. Like sometimes it's all the same enemies, so you just kind of get used to what the enemy does. Sometimes it's a bunch of different kinds of enemies that are complementing each other. Well, I think like a great example is this one room I know, I believe it's in level 6, where you're fighting and there's like these wizards in there, and they're shooting these magic things that you can only block if you have the really big shield. So you want to kill those fuckers, but then you have likes in there, and if they like touch you, they're gonna eat your shield. You have to go buy a big shield again. Plus, now those wizards can hit you. You can't block their magic attacks. So you want to kill the likes, but then there's also those fucking assholes, their little curse ball things going around that hit you, and then you can't use your sword for a few seconds after that. So it's really hard to be killing things with all that going on at once. It's really a big asshole room, but it's really well designed in that regard. And really, the game in general is designed really well, though. I mean, being able to explore the stuff, the little challenges, and it's just the overall like openness, and basically just the fact that it puts so much on you. It's about your skill and your willingness to explore. You're really only limited in this game by your commitment, and that's just really cool how it rewards you for exploring. You can find more secrets, you can do different things, and you know, the more you want to play it, the more it's going to reward you in a meaningful way. You know, so it's great. There are a few things I think that are not good about it. There are a few things, because no game is perfect. I mean, trust me, I love this game. You know I do, and I know everybody does. But there are a few things that I just don't think are that great about it. Not necessarily bad, I guess, but, you know, not perfect, or you can see where they could be an issue. One is with the design overall. I think of just this weird compromise, because you know they wanted to do like an open world thing. They did. But it feels like they also kind of wanted some semblance of progression, like a difficulty curve. So while you can go kind of out of order for different dungeons, you don't have to necessarily do them all in the same order. You can do them in, like, some of them you can do them in a different order, but there are some where like you'll need items from a previous dungeon to even get to the dungeon, and some dungeons you can go into without even being able to beat them. And I think that kind of sucks. It's kind of annoying to get all the way, you know, deep into a dungeon and realize you don't have an item to progress, and like it's not in that dungeon, so you can't get any further. You just have to leave, because then you have to find your way all the way. There's one way in and one way out of a dungeon. You got to go all the way back out the door and leave, and that's kind of annoying. That's probably just me. I get that it's part of the whole exploration thing. Like, it's numbered. Maybe you weren't supposed to do this like level 6 before you did, level 3. Maybe pay attention to those numbers. Which is why I now play it. I tend to play it in order so it doesn't happen. But like that part, like it's cool. You can go in there and I get the effect, but that can be a little bit annoying. And it's just like this overall like idea that it's kind of a compromise because it's not totally open world because you can't just go to any spot right away. You still need certain items to get to certain areas, and typically those areas are going to be a lot tougher because you need to have better equipment by the time you're there. You're expected to have already done so much by the time you get there that because they block it off, it's clearly because that's much harder and you're not supposed to do that yet. It's supposed to get harder as you progress. So the weird like balance between a difficulty curve and an open world, they wanted the best of both worlds, and while they did a really good job, you just can't have the best of both of those things because that doesn't exist. You can compromise between them, but the way one works is contradictory to the other, I guess is the point. Also, I know it's nitpicky, but like with the audio-visual department, it's not even worth getting mad. It's an NES game, and I still think it looks really good, and it has some cool music, but it's like, you basically hear two themes the entire game, which are the overworld theme, which I think is great, and the dungeon theme, which I also really like. There's only like, a handful of other themes, like the final level theme, the game over theme, and like, I guess like the title screen one and like the credits one. I don't know if those are different or not. I don't remember now. They sound similar if they are different. But like they could have maybe done more for that. Also, a lot of the stuff is kind of palette swapped. Like, oh, this tree is a slightly different color in this part of the world, and all these dungeons have just a slightly different color to them than other ones, but they're the same assets. Not a big deal. Even some of the enemies are color swapped. It's not a big deal, really. And it's, a way to work around the limitations of the system and all. And, I can't fault it too much since it has, like, a save system, which is pretty advanced for the time. But, I don't know. I will say, like, it would be nice to have a little more variety, maybe. It's part of the charm. It's part of the, the era and everything. And you can't argue with it too much, but just from a perspective of, like, maybe there could have been more themes for the different levels, and some more variety in the visuals. It wouldn't have hurt. Another thing is that the puzzles in this game are super light. I mean, they're barely even puzzles for most of them. They usually just consist of, like, killing all the enemies in a room and then pushing a block, and then a staircase appears or, like, an item appears or something. And, I mean, there aren't really many puzzles. Like, that's hardly a puzzle, is it? You just kind of push a thing? I don't know. Maybe you count that as a puzzle. It sort of is. It's more of a secret than a puzzle, I guess. And I don't know. I mean, they could have done more with the puzzles, I think. That would have helped. Well, the game can be kind of cryptic at times. There are points when you're not really sure what you're supposed to do, and even the hints that you get are a little vague on, what they really mean. And you might have to spend a lot of time trying to find some of those hints, and that can be frustrating too. Like, you spend all this time trying to find, these really, the people say pay me and I'll talk to get these helpful hints on stuff. And it's like, I just want to know how to do this thing. And while you might have had the patience before, because you had to back in the day, it's one of those things now where if you're going to get, like, super frustrated trying to find the secret place or trying to just figure out what you're supposed to do, then you might just look it up. And as good as it is with trying to give you hints for everything and giving you the tools to complete the game within the game, there might be times when you're still pretty stumped on what you're supposed to do. So, I mean, it can't be helped with the adventurous nature they were going for, but it's still a thing where it's like, it can be frustrating. I can understand why people would be annoyed with that. But also, I don't think this game is exempt from the whole hand-holding idea. I mean, you're given hints, and yes, you have to find them, but there are some hints that you're given that you kind of have to find. You'll just walk into a place and, like, in a dungeon, per se, like some dungeons have people just hanging out in them, and they'll just give you these hints when you walk into their room, and you kind of have to. or if you're exploring the entire dungeon anyway, you're gonna end up like going through their room to get that hint forced upon you. Even if you go just into like a secret cave or something and they give you a hint on what to do next, it's like you don't ask them. It's just forced upon you, and it's helpful and it's nice. And it's not like people are pushing it down your throat constantly and trying to bug you every 5 minutes saying, "Hey, you should go do this now." It certainly is an inkling of the hand-holding to come, and it's really not, I guess, hand-holding in this sense here. It's a very early stage of it. It's more or less just hints. It's just scattered hints, and the fact that you have to find them and earn them anyway is good. It balances it out, so it's like you can be rewarded with that stuff. Like, it's going to cost you. You don't just get it. It's not just thrown at you. So I think that's really good that it encourages you to go out and seek most of those as well, I guess. But it is a little bit of hand-holding. It wasn't just completely not in the first game, is what I'm saying. But when it comes right down to it, The Legend of Zelda really isn't that flawed. I mean, the game has no huge fatal flaw, and it doesn't have any, horrible design thing. There's nothing really about the game that ruins it. It's great if you like adventuring. It does a lot of cool Zelda stuff since it was the first Zelda game. And it's a lot of fun. It's one where it's because of like the way it looks and the way it plays, and it's the challenge and the exploration and just the overall experience. I mean, hasn't really aged poorly at all. The only thing you could really say, I guess, is that it looks like pixelated, but because of the kind of cartoonish nature of it, almost, it doesn't really matter. And it shouldn't matter anyways. It's a great game. It's a game that I have a lot of love for. It was one of the first games I've ever played, and it was the first Zelda game I ever played. And even though I totally sucked at it and would kind of just wander around aimlessly or watch my brother play it, I still had a great time with it. It's simple, but it's challenging and it's rewarding, and just the things that this game accomplished for an NES game are great. It's a tougher Zelda game, I would say, but as far as NES games go, it's probably one of the easier ones. And I did get to the last dungeon on the actual NES version of it, on the physical NES cartridge, but I didn't actually beat it on that, and I didn't do it until I played through it again on, should have held this up before, on the Game Boy Advance, the classic NES thing. It's about the same. The series of games is pretty cool for the Game Boy Advance. I remember them coming out and I was all excited. So like, this is pretty close to exactly the same thing as just a port. The only things that are different that I noticed are some of the sounds aren't quite the same as you can get with like an NES sound chip, I suppose. So like, some of like the tones on a couple instruments I think sound a little weird. Like I noticed in the intro thing, it sounded a little weird to me, but maybe it's just been a while. And the sword noise definitely sounds different to me, and that could be like a speaker thing also, but like I think the sword noise is different in this than it is in other Zeldas, or in the original NES Zelda. So there's that. And like honestly, for the first of its kind, also this is the footage you're going to be seeing is of this. But for the first of its kind, it was amazing. It's great, and the fact that it still holds up is just, it's incredible. It's one of the best games ever made, definitely, and I love the shit out of it. So I definitely needed to have at least some kind of copy of it, even though I know the NES one would look way cooler to hold up right now because it's gold and stuff. But I think that's probably enough of me sucking The Legend of Zelda's dick for today. I'd like you guys maybe to leave something in the comments, what you thought of the game or your experiences with it. I also just recently found out there's like a whole second quest to that. I always knew there was one, but apparently the second quest is actually like different, like the locations of stuff is different. And also I didn't realize that the dungeons were also just different dungeons entirely too. So there's like 2 games for the price of one in a Zelda game. If you're thinking of buying this game, do it. I mean, it might be, I don't know how much it goes for, if it's like maybe I think I maybe seen it like $30 or something for like the NES one. I don't know if this one goes cheaper or not, but you know, even if you just want to grab it off of like the eShop or something, like get the game. It's a great game, and it's definitely worth playing if you're interested in the Zelda series. This is a great one to play because while it's very unique, it really just really defines, I think, what Zelda is about at its core, and that's the exploration. That is the adventure. And I've been a real person. I'm Sam. And I will see you guys in the future videos for Zelda Month. So be sure to check those out. And if you want to see a written review of this, you can go ahead and go to the www.thegravelpit.net, and I'll have a link in the description as well. And there'll be a written review for the game too. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and hopefully you guys are as pumped. Wow, great! As pumped for Zelda Month as I am. And I really am liking the excuse to replay all of the Zelda games.